Welcome to the 2020 ACLS webinar series. The Association of Consultants for Liturgical Space is a voluntary membership organization of professionals dedicated to the creation of beautiful worship spaces for faith communities. This webinar series is part of our commitment to providing mutual professional support and continuing education for our members. I'm Paul Baribeau of Growth Design Group. I am the webinar facilitator for the ACLS Webinar Committee, and it's my pleasure to facilitate today's webinar. Our webinar topic today is about painting walls and building bridges, presented by artist and muralist Mickey McGrath. Brother Mickey McGrath, an Oblate of St. Francis de Sales, lives and works in Camden, New Jersey. He is an award-winning artist, author, and speaker whose work celebrates the connections between art, beauty, and religious faith. He is a guild master at the Grunwald Guild and Interfaith Art Community in Leavenworth, Washington, where he has taught for 33 years. Brother Mickey is a popular speaker and presenter at conferences and retreats throughout the United States and Canada. Brother Mickey is the illustrator and author of 21 award-winning books. No matter the subject or topic, Brother Mickey's work highlights themes of art for meditation, social justice, and cultural diversity, and for the healing power of beauty in all its forms. So we're very pleased to welcome to our webinar series, Brother Mickey McGrath.
Hi there. I'm very excited to be here. Anyhow, I with a name like Mickey O'Neill McGrath, I could hardly let St. Patty's Day pass by without starting this webinar. It's not a mural image, but I went to the ShopRite yesterday, our local grocery store here in Jersey, and I never saw such long lines in my life. It wrapped all the way around the store. So that got me thinking of St. Patrick's breastplate prayer, which has always been one of my favorites. It's a classic Celtic prayer in which he said, talks Christ before me, Christ behind me, Christ to my right, Christ to my left, Christ above, Christ below. Beautiful, beautiful prayer. But that's what inspired this little cartoon that I posted this morning on my website and Facebook page. And also another feature of my work is a very common feature, not always, but is to have the Holy Spirit in there somewhere. So there's the Holy Spirit hanging out in the market, in the basket, the cart. And this one I'm going to post tomorrow, and it kind of relates to the murals you're about to see because it's just black and white. I'm always happy to help people out, especially now with all these folks that have their kids at home for the unforeseen future, and to send out things for young people and older people today are loving coloring, but that very active of coloring as a meditation experience. So here's Be Not Afraid. Of course, that is a line that appears in Scripture. I think I've read 370 times in the Old and New Testaments. So there it is, and then with the Holy Spirit, of course, again, and just a way for them to kind of see things differently in color and calm down. And so I'm going to hope to do that many days. I don't know if I can commit to every day, but as long as this crisis goes on, there'll be a little something for people to feed into. But the idea comes from the murals we're about to see. I want to show first this quote. I love calligraphy. I've always done it. And I love this quote. It was what Pope Paul VI said when he was closing Vatican II, the very last session of Vatican II back in 1968. This world in which we live needs beauty in order not to sink into despair. And I think, wow, 50 years later, what prescient words they were that we needed. We've always needed it in history, but we sure need beauty now. And I think that's so much the important work that all of us watching this webinar are about, whether we be painters or artists or fabric workers or architects, glass window designers, metal, whatever it is, whatever form of beauty we make, we're contributing into hope in the world and optimism. And as a presenter, a very frequent presenter and retreat director, I hear that all the time, that people will say, after, I can't tell you how much hope you've just given me. and I think that's our job and our function. Here's a quote from Pope Francis. He said it last year. A living fabric has come undone, and we, like weavers, are called to repair it. And I love it, most especially because of its reference to weavers and art form, and how all of us are have a responsibility of spreading beauty in our own way in the world, but also how that he was referring last year to the sex abuse crisis that's haunting the church these days, and but it certainly relates to everything else too, what we're doing to creation and our national spirit, all of it, and that's what our job as artists. So that leads me to the whole mural situation. I want to begin with Joseph's House, a homeless shelter right here in Camden, which I was invited to. I'll back up again a little bit. My studio is in South Camden. It has been for 12 years now at Sacred Heart Church, and I've been invited there by Father Michael Doyle, a wonderful Irishman who is the retired pastor. But he's provided me with a studio space in South Camden because he firmly believes, as did Dorothy Day before him, that beauty brings hope and cheer to these challenged places in our world, like Camden City. And so I've been there happily ensconced in my studio down there for all these years. And that's where I'm coming to with all that I'm sharing today. It's this whole idea of beauty and seeing it in new places and that I never did before. So anyhow, about 5-6 years ago, I was invited to lead a men's retreat at Sacred Heart Church. And so I went over to Joseph's House that had just opened a few months before that. And I talked to them. I said, I would like to get some retreat going on the wall. So a friend of mine from out of town was visiting. And there she is. She helped me prepare the walls. And I ended up drawing 6 scenes from the life of St. Joseph in black and white. And I brought the 32 men over from the retreat. And I said, you're going to paint. I numbered everything. So it was like a giant paint by number coloring book. All of them, most of them anyhow, were in a panic. I've never done this. I'm not an artist. I can't do it. I said, if you know your numbers, you can do this. And that's what gave me the idea. I could barely tear them out there 2 hours later. They loved the experience so much. And over the next 2 years, I had different high school groups that come to Camden to do service things, or college groups from all over who love to come to Camden. We're a big destination spot for people who want to do service. And so I would often have them in, even if it was just for an hour, groups of kids painting, and these scenes from the life of St. Joseph set in modern day Camden. And so it just opened my eyes and possibilities to a whole new thing. Here's a high school group. I think they were from Virginia that came up. And you can see, I'll show you close-ups of the pictures eventually. But it was really transforming me and the whole sense of what art can be, and letting go of my need and realizing this is becoming a communal project. Everybody loved it. It was transforming for some of these young people. And as I always told them that, at Joseph's House, they're feeding the body because the guests, they have 80 guests there a night, and they get a hot meal when they arrive, all food donated by local parishes and all kinds of groups. And in the morning, they get breakfast before they leave. There's a shower facility, a laundry facility for them, job counselors, and it's a wonderful place of hospitality for the homeless. And so John, the director at the time, told me, he said, I wish you could hear the comments from the homeless guests who were watching these paintings evolve and then bringing color into the bare white walls, and beauty and faith, all of it kind of coming together. And one day, one of the three, they had three of the homeless guests stay behind and asked if they could help paint, which thrilled me because I thought this is the very group that I want. And I remember one of them asked me if she could work on this angel. There's 2 angels that kind of bookend these 6 scenes, because Joseph had 4 dreams in Matthew's gospel. And this is the first of the angels. And she asked if she could paint this. And so I went down to talk to her. We were painting side by side. And I said, why did you want to paint this angel? And she said, because I know God sends me angels to keep me safe on the streets, and I don't live in fear. And I thought, wow, this is awesome. And we had a wonderful little chat about her life and some of the challenges she had, and some big ones. And no sooner did we finish our conversation than a young woman down the other end blurted out, "I can't tell you how good I feel, how calm I feel," she said. That was her word, calm. So I went down and talked to her, and we were painting, and I said, "How did you survive the winter? It was so brutally cold." And she said, "I only had 2 sweaters and a light jacket, and she said, but this year I know I have Joseph's house, and I feel it's going to be safe this coming winter." And she said, "But I said, "But this is calming you down right now." She said, "Yeah." She said, "It reminds me of when I was a teenager. My mom and I used to paint ceramics together at night." And that just broke my heart, filled me with such hope on one hand that this act of painting was bringing her a sense of inner peace and calm, but so sad on the other hand that there she was with her mom, and I don't know what happened in her life. Drugs, I know, were part of it, and those 2 women sharing their story just gave me such hope that is what this is about. That we as artists and designers can do. It's no small thing at all. It's a huge thing. And so anyhow, here's the first angel on the left, and she's coming to Joseph, who there he is. He's sleeping in one of the cots, and you can see modern day Camden outside the window there. And here's the Holy Family, and with City Hall in the background, and train tracks, and then instead of a manger, there's the little cardboard carton at the bottom. And at the time I was working on the sketches for this, I saw a little baby that had the teddy bear outfit on, and I thought, "That's too cute. I got to get Jesus one of those." So that's how he ended up in that. It's just everything is about observing our life, isn't it? Especially artists and designers, just being very present to wherever you are. That there's beauty everywhere, even in the most neglected places like Camden, New Jersey. And so here's the flight into Egypt. Only it's the flight over the Benjamin Franklin Bridge, going over to downtown Philadelphia, across the river. And lastly, Jesus working with his father in their carpenter shop. And there's Jesus as a teenager. And one of the other homeless guests was working on this one, and he was doing a great job. I could tell I gave him the job of painting some of the black outlines because he had a good, steady hand. And he shared with me that when he was a little boy, he was clearly a very educated man. I don't know what happened in his life. Again, probably drugs or mental illness. But in any event, he shared that when he was a little boy, his father made him and his 2 brothers take music and art lessons. And so that was feeding him to this day. He worked in Philadelphia with their mural project over there. And there he is living on the streets in Camden now, and he helped paint. And I thought, this is what better story of Christian hope and mercy and compassion and non-judgmental life than this, than to bring somebody into coloring. So that has fed the the coloring sheet that I started off telling you about. Black outlines. I thought, well, let's not just do this on walls, we can do it on paper too. So here's the final angel on the back end, and he's wearing an Philadelphia Eagles shirt and a Phillies cap. I never did go back and paint those their logos, but there he is. And there's a scene of the finished room back at the time. You can still see the tape that I had on there. But when that was finished, I thought, oh, what do we do now? So we moved into the dining room, and I had 6 students from MIT who had come down to Camden. They weren't a religious group, as you can see. They're multi-religious, multicultural. 6 wonderful young people. There they are, and their director. And they came, and I told them about. They came to my studio for a tour, and I told them about the murals at Joseph's house. And I said, we're ready to start a batch in the dining room. And I said, you're going to come over and help me. And the one kid, I remember, absolutely panicked. He pulled me aside. He said, I can't do this. I don't know how to paint. I'm not an artist. And here I am, an engineer at MIT. And I said, I got you covered. And I got them over there and gave them all yardsticks and the tape, and they measured out way more precisely than I ever would have. The wall space, painted it. They put the primer on, and they didn't have to do anything artistic. That was it for the next group. But they had such a sense of accomplishment and as if they were contributing something, and they were. There's everybody's gifts can be used, even engineers and technical people like that. So I had a high school group come in from Wilmington, Delaware, And here's one of the boys. They came up and I drew the next batch of images in chalk on the wall, since it's so easy to change and adapt. And then I gave this one kid a Sharpie or a marker and asked him to outline the chalk. And we started the next round of murals for the dining room where the folks eat every night. And it's this miracle of the loaves and fishes. And so here's Jesus with the young boy who provided the little starter kit in that miracle. I always love that. And this was an all boys high school, and they loved this experience so much that they asked the teacher to come back a second time. And what they did was they designed stencils. Look at these beautiful stencils of fish. So the image you just saw, the fish are kind of leaping out of the basket there and going across the wall where people line up to get their food. And over by the window where they finally get there at the end of the line, there's or the front of the line. It's the supper of Emmaus. Stay and have supper. It's evening. The day is done, which is what the folks said to Jesus and welcomed him to the table. So there's modern day Camden homeless folks being fed at Joseph's house, and it is the ongoing supper of Emmaus. So here's the wall as they did it with all the fish. And but they did it on a dingy gray wall. And that very summer, Rutgers University here in Camden had a program, a leadership building program for high school kids to kind of give them alternatives to life on the streets in Camden and keep them out of gangs and everything else. So a wonderful program. And Rutgers bought house paint for me and the supplies, and they brought 15 kids over. And over the course of 3 days, they painted the whole room, but on the wall with the fish, I picked out these colors, kind of tropical, cheery colors to make it look like the fish are swimming across the wall. And here's two of the high school kids. That one girl on the left, she was awesome. She was so good at this. And another, natural talent. You could just tell she was so good with the outlines and the edges. And the other kids who weren't, it's okay. I wasn't about to correct them. It's kind of, you cover up any mistakes that happen after. And it's only house paint, not a big deal. It was a constant letting go for me, letting go of my perfectionism and need to kind of control the situation. What I've come to learn since is once the stuff's on the wall, it's out of my hands. I did my job and it becomes a gift for everyone else. So she had this wonderful opportunity to paint and use that talent in a way that she might not have been able to before. So I don't know what came of her, but I hope she got into an art school when she graduated from high school. And here's the whole group of kids, these wonderful, wonderful high school kids that just had a life-changing week that week, doing a good thing at Joseph's house. So here's the other piece of this story. That this last summer they had to renovate and enlarge the space. So all the walls came down, all the walls that had the paintings on them. What you're looking at, this space is where the story of St. Joseph was. But what they did was they had them digitally printed on canvas at the exact size as the originals. So, but they were so upset to tell me that the things had to come down. And I said, you know what, this is a real lesson in letting go too. And I had said it all along that this is, we're not, I didn't care if they were ever finished or how perfect they looked at the end. It was the experience of the temporary, it's the journey, not the destination. It was the meditative calm and peace that high school kids had and college kids and adults, of course, who just entered a nice, quiet, peaceful zone. And so here's that. So the paintings aren't gone, And so that gave me the idea. I was telling a friend of mine who's a Maryknoll missionary priest in Kenya. He was home. I saw him in New York City, and he was telling me about his work over there at an AIDS relief center. And I told him about the Joseph's House murals. And I said, sounds like you could use some murals over there. So he contacted me a few months later. Out of the blue, I got a text message. And he said, I'm looking at bare walls when you're coming over. So I started work, and I designed a mural. And again, with the idea of numbering it, I brought chalk. We used house paint instead of artist paint this time. And that's what I do ever since. It's just so much easier to deal with than art mediums and fussing and all that. This is just go to Home Depot, I get them the chart and have at it. So that I designed this on my iPad and sent it over to Rick. And I said, here's what the mural is going to look like. It's the visitation of Mary and Elizabeth, and it's for a waiting room in the clinic for pregnant women with HIV. And this clinic is there to provide, it's run by the Archdiocese of Kenya, or connected to them, it's not run by them. But it's to provide the medications these women need and checkups and all that, regular doctor's visits. And with the medications, if they take it faithfully, they will not pass the HIV on to the baby or future partners. So I figured what better image than the visitation of Mary and Elizabeth in there. So I designed it. I said, print it out so that the little kids who are there with their moms for their appointments can color it. And I arrived and drew in chalk on the wall, just like at Joseph's house. And they had their social worker, Samson, wonderful, wonderful young man. He was great. And it turns out he said, I love art. And so this project was made for him. I mean, who knew? This is totally out of my hands. This is the Holy Spirit at work. And so he helped me paint. I drew the things in chalk, and then he and I outlined everything in black and numbered it. And then he had, there's, you can see the numbers in chalk. And I made a little chart with the corresponding colors, one green. We limited the colors to 6. So it made it that much easier too. Less is more. And Samson had 7 young teenagers help me. And it turns out that in August that schools are closed for 3 weeks because it's winter break time in Kenya from school. So I had the help of these 7 teenagers, all of whom have HIV because their mothers didn't have access to the medication. They can now take it, and they're in this program. And so if they're faithful, my friend Rick is running the program, they'll be fine. But because they just jumped into this, they showed up right after lunch on Mondays when we handed the paint to them, and by Monday afternoon they had the first one almost finished. And my panic now was, what am I going to do till Friday? I mean, I had Monday to Friday allotted for I figured if we can get one mural done, that'd be great. But anyhow, I just love these kids, and I realized this was the gift. That's when I realized that my work was done. I got it on the wall. It was now theirs. They took total ownership. I thought, I'm not going to start micromanaging and controlling and telling them how to hold a brush and all that stuff. I thought they'll figure it out naturally, and they did. By Wednesday morning, they were showing up before I even got there. And they were so excited about this. It was a wonderful opportunity for them to bond. And that's what my friend Rick kept saying. He said, this means so much to them because they're ostracized in school for being HIV positive. It's such a huge, huge problem in Kenya. And kids being kids, they were kind of on the fringes. So this was just like Joseph's house, a wonderful time through creativity and paint and beauty to bond together, to form community. And they were like typical kids. They were, teasing each other and taking the work seriously, but taking breaks and listening to hip hop music on their phones and everything else. And I loved it. But what you're seeing now of these sketches are of the people who were in the waiting room, the mothers who had shown up for their appointments. We had moved all the benches out to make room for paint, except for one little row. And so here's a modern Madonna and Child. She was sitting on the wall beneath a traditional icon of Mary and Jesus. And I just thought, here's the modern Kenya version, Madonna and Child. There's a couple of the kids on the break listening to hip hop. And because they were so comfortable painting and kind of taking over, that freed me up to just sketch everything and wander around and enjoy it. I was walking around the facility and out in the parking lot and just soaking in life in Nairobi. I'd never been there before. And so here they are at work, painting away. And as I said, loving it. We just simple tools. I brought the little brushes, but we just had plastic cups and pardon me, and the house paint. So it does not have to be complicated. And here's some of them working on the first painting. Here they are, 7 of them, and 6 of the 5 rather. Excuse me, I can't count. Of the 7 teenagers, and the one young boy on the right, the lower right. He asked me one day at lunch. Rick was getting lunch for them every day, and he said, "You're always asking us questions. Can I ask you one?" And I said, "Sure, you can." Thinking he was going to ask, "Why do Americans call chips French fries?" Or something innocuous. And he said, "What's your definition of success?" And I was stuttering and stammering. I thought, oh my, I didn't see that coming. And I said, I think it's when you discover what your gift is. I said, everybody has some unique gift or talent. And if you use that gift and nurture it and love it, then you'll be successful no matter what you do. It's not about how much money you make. And he said, I agree with that. And he went back to eating his fried chicken. And again, a moment I will never, ever forget, out of the depths of this group of kids that are marginalized in their own way and in a world that I would love to see again. I don't know if I ever will, but anyhow, we're all connected, aren't we? And this kind of communal mural project is perfect for that. So here they are doing I forgot everything but thin enough brushes for them to do features, so they had to use the wooden end of the brush to. But hey, any port in a storm, right? So there's the finished product, Mary and Elizabeth. And the word upendo is there, which is Swahili. Swahili is the national language of Kenya. And upendo means love in Swahili. And I had them sign everything with the Sharpie, sign it on the wall. And the next day, the benches were moved back in, and there they are. The mothers were back the next morning, first thing, with their kids and babies, but sitting down beneath this finished mural. And it was a real thrill to see in these humble circumstances. You know, humility is the treat, isn't it? It's the trick, rather. It's just letting go. And if this were something I was doing on my own for myself in a different situation, I would have had a whole different feeling about it. But in this, it's about letting go and just letting the Holy Spirit take over and communal love. So anyhow, in the men's clinic across the way from the women's clinic is the Holy Trinity, and they are dressed as Maasai warriors. The Maasai wear beautiful, beautiful red shawls of great patterns, a lot of checker patterns, and beaded necklaces. And so that's became the theme for the men's clinic. And so it's Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. There they are. And ujasiri, the word you see there, is the Swahili word for strength. And then they had misunderstood when I said I need 2 walls prepared. They thought I meant 2 walls in each clinic. So there were 2 walls in the women and 2 in the men's. And because these kids were progressing so fast, I was able to, just on the spot, I picked up chalk and drew 2 other sketches. And so this is in the men's clinic, and it's Nguvu, and that's the child Jesus sitting on the back of a lion, which is a very prominent symbol in Kenya. And Nguvu means courage in Swahili. And the fourth one, I don't have a finished picture up to show you, but it was a good shepherd image of Christ with dreadlocks and sheep and all that. And the word in that one is joy. So here we are at the end of the men's clinic painting, and those wonderful, wonderful kids. I love them, and I hope I can go back someday. From there, I don't have pictures to show you, but I did a lot of sketching. I went into the slums of East Nairobi, and because this experience just opened up my heart in ways that I couldn't have before, I just saw it so much differently. And the people we went to interview, and it was an astounding experience, and I hope I get more of them in life. So last year, 2019, in January, I was invited to be artist in residence for 1 week at St. Joseph's Indian School in Chamberlain, South Dakota, and that's the heartland of the Lakota Sioux Indians. And so I got very immersed in Native American spirituality, and especially the life of Nicholas Black Elk, who in the Catholic Church is now servant of God. He's on the first steps of towards sainthood. And so studying his life and Lakota spirituality in general was another life-changing experience. So on this one, I had the help primarily of the art teacher, this guy Dave, who got a substitute for his art classes that week so that he could be there for me the whole time, which was wonderful. And so he and I sketched that mural on the wall together. He was the Samson of this trip. And anyhow, and he recorded everything with an iPad. He put it on the tripod. Now, St. Joseph's is a boarding school for K through high school. The high school kids go to the local public high school, but until 8th grade, they go to school right here at St. Joseph's. And so their religion teacher, a young man, was bringing all his classes down to watch this and to have them ask questions. It was an extraordinary experience. Second grade through eighth grade, they were all coming down over the course of the week. Started Monday, finished Friday, just like Nairobi, and it became drawn into their education as well. So the images here are there's anybody who walked through was invited to paint for a little bit. Again, paint from Home Depot. You don't need a whole lot of it when it's, the walls remain white. So it's not like we're covering the whole wall with paint. And there's some of the kids, the counselors were bringing down. They have 13 full-time counselors at this school because the kids live in very, very difficult circumstances and reservations that are tough. And so St. Joe's is this little place of peace for them, but also where they can learn about their Lakota, spirituality and culture, which was almost wiped out totally by the American Army. So here we have the evolving picture. The centerpiece is the Madonna and Child, and Mary is shaped like a teepee because of the sacredness of the home. And nomadic people lived on the road following the buffalo. On the left is St. Kateri Tekakwitha, and she's a Mohawk. She was half Mohawk, half Algonquin, and she's the first canonized Native American saint. She was canonized in 2012. I've had a great love and devotion to her since I was a little boy, growing up in Northeast Philly. And so she is standing on the banks of the Mohawk River, which is where she grew up, and there's a turtle next to her. And she died in outside Montreal, Canada. But another fascinating story. But she's holding a tree branch with the four seasons, because four and the seasons are very important images and symbols in Native spirituality, and the Holy Spirit on top of that. And on the right side is myself standing on Black Elk Peak, which is in the Black Hills of western South Dakota, and that's the sacred holy ground of the Lakota. And now he's holding a pipe and with a buffalo on it. And I this led to a series of 40 paintings that I've done, drawings and paintings since. I'm only sharing the mural with you, but I'm very steeped in Lakota spirituality now and Native American spirituality. The red road you see going behind is part of a Lakota blessing. And you travel the red road. It's the symbol of life, the journey of life, the red road of life. So there it is in its final position, and next to the elevator in the health center. And up top, you see the words. So I got the idea from putting Swahili words in the other Kenya paint murals. And so this is Lakota, and it means, it says Medakue Oyashi, which is Lakota for we are connected, which is the basic creation-centered belief of the Plains Indians and Native Americans. And it means that we're all connected because we're all made by the same great creator spirit. And not just people to people, but people to creatures and people to creation, and that we have to honor creation and to find God in the presence of creation. So it's beautiful stuff and ancient. It fits in right with Celtic spirituality and Hildegard of Bingen, another fan, and Francis of Assisi, and all the stuff that's been there here all along in the church, in Christianity, but we're just kind of rediscovering it in new ways in this time of crisis and of creation. So the next job after that summer, that was January out there in South Dakota, and last summer in New York, I went to St. Francis de Sales Church at the corner of 96th and Lexington, where I was asked to lead a mural project in the basement of their church, which they had just fixed up and turned into a hall, which was getting a lot of traction and increased their church attendance because they now have functions down there, fun functions, as well as coffee and donuts after Mass on Sunday. And so anyhow, on that wall, I designed this mural that you see on the, I'll show you a close-up of it. There it is in the Sharpie stage. But it's a quote from Dorothy Day, who, of course, lived and died in New York. And she's on her way to sainthood. If we could only learn that the only important thing is to love, and to show that love and express that love over and over, whether we feel it or not do anything but love, love, love. Well, I showed up. I had been there before, but they put a sign on the door, and anybody was welcome to come in and paint. And here's the wall that wall covered. That quote covers, and there it is in the Sharpie stage. I don't think I even needed the chalk this time. You can see that little bucket of chalk on the lower right, but if I recall, I didn't use it. Maybe I did. Who knows? And that's what I love here. It was true in all of the murals I've done. When I designed them on my iPad, of course, until you get to the real space and see the real proportions and dimensions, things have to change. So this is basically the same as that, but things had to change, like that big light switch up top there with the 3 light bulbs. I had to incorporate that in there. And here's we went to Home Depot, and these are the 6 colors that we used. And the kills, just that sealer and, primer. And off we went. I did bring a couple tubes of artist paint, like hot pink, and for a touch up. So here's the maintenance guy. He was the first one to paint because he was, of course, the first one to show up for work every morning. So he had the privilege of leading us off. This was a local evangelical pastor who came with his wife. They were the second people to show up. He was amazing, wonderful guy. And so he and here's his wife. They started adding paint, and then parishioners started coming. They had opened it up, and it was summer, so kids were out of school, and moms and their little kids and teachers and all that showed up. And I was kind of panicked a little bit because so many little kids were coming, and I thought, we can't have kids up on the ladders, and there's not enough room, and blah blah blah. So there were 15 pillars around the room, columns. And so I wrote the word love in all the different languages of the parishioners there. This was a mother and daughter, a mother and her little boy painting. And during their painting break, he was teaching everybody how to do the floss, a dance I'd never even heard of before, but there they were. So it was a fun community building experience that I, again, loved. So here's the word love, and a lot of these are low enough for little kids to reach. And we started that one on Wednesday. People didn't come till Thursday morning, and by Friday afternoon, these were finished. And then we used Saturday for just the 3 of us to do cleanup and, tidy up edges and things like that. So they were ready to go. These 2 were both teachers, and they were there all day long, working on those ladders, getting the high stuff done. And here's a kind of a big view of the room with this seating area. And you can see they get a sense of the columns with the word love, and a lot of different, like upendo for Swahili. And here's a close-up of some of those columns, even down there, lower right, you saw Mandarin Chinese. So it helped my language skills. I learned love. There's Lamu, which is Creole. Upendo, Swahili. Mandarin Chinese. Pagabig is Tagalog from the Philippines. Amore for the Italians. And here's the final mural at the end. And I was so happy. Again, it's not threatening for people when they're just filling in lines. There's no shadowing done, no facial details that might be a little intimidating for non-artists. Everybody can fill in a letter, it just seems like a logical way to go. So here's a little conglomeration of all of it. Again, a wonderful experience. That finished on Friday, and Monday I had to go up to the Sales University where I used to teach full time. Now I'm doing some visiting artist stuff. But they have a student center there called the Dorothy Day Student Center, and they asked for a mural there. And I thought, well, the quote's already done. Used the same quote and basic design. Had to change it a little differently because of the design of the building. But it was the week that the incoming freshmen were coming. And so their social justice director organized these new freshmen who were away from home for the first time, and gave them a little exciting work to do to fight their homesickness and the anxieties they may have had about starting a college and all that. And so you can see basically the same idea, but we had 3 panels that we had to fit it into and extend it. So again, and they even had cookies there. See that lower right. And here's the finished product. I can't get a good picture because they have clerestory windows around the whole thing, so the lighting was just terrible to try to take a picture. But you can see same basic design, just altered a little bit. I love this quote from Thomas Berry, and I'm going to share it. I put it in here. If you don't know Thomas Berry, he was a priest. He died, I think, about 10 years ago. But back in the 80s, he was starting to talk about science. Teilhard de Chardin was his big hero, and he was talking about the environment and where we were headed. He saw this all coming. He was a very prophetic man. And this is one of his quotes. He wrote it in 1984. Our children grow restless and soul hungry for a world of meaning beyond anything available from their concrete world with all its noise and trash and wires and wheels and machinery and electronic gadgetry. So 20 years before anybody was thinking of cell phones and texting, 25 years even, there he was. He saw it coming. And I just think that I love this quote. It has new meaning to me because this is what this communal mural painting is all about, and especially at the college, those kids, they didn't have their phones. I don't remember any of them, stopping to text or make phone calls. They got immersed in the work. And so here's our final project. This was just 2 months ago in January at St. John Newman Parish down in Reston, Virginia. It's run by our community, the Oblate of St. Francis de Sales. So I wanted to use a quote from St. Francis. And this one says, we should hide our littleness in God's greatness and stay there like a little bird beneath its mother's sheltering wing. And this was in their religious formation wing of their office building. And so I thought, so many little kids passing through here. I didn't know it, but they're preschool kids pass right by this wall every single day on their way to and from. And so I love this whole idea of God as the mother and the sheltering wing. And so I drew it on the wall, chalk and Sharpie. And again, just like the New York City experience, this was their maintenance man who was the first to show up that day. So he got the privilege of putting the first paint on. And then it evolved. I brought the hot pink again. I loves me some hot pink paint. And this one grandmother showed up with her little 5-year-old, and I panicked. I thought, oh, this kid's way too young. She was amazing. She got everything done. She's pretty good about staying in the lines. I stayed close because she had some of the big globs there. But again, house paint. It's like let go of my need to control and just detach from all of that. And she was amazing. She was working so fast too that I had to find other things for her to do. She kept saying, what can I do now? And then I want to turn her away because she was so enthusiastic. So I ended up drawing birds, and since that was the theme, and worms on the other walls. And so here's a worm around a light switch that I said, why don't you go paint that worm? Well, this became one of the most exciting things of the week. I was there for Monday through Friday. And she said, I painted a worm. She was so proud of herself, and she did a great job. There she is at the end beneath her worm. And here's at 3:30, the school was still in. So at 3:30, these kids, when they were out of school, came over to paint, and they were just lining up. And again, I panicked a little because this is too high for kids. But they were working fast, doing a wonderful job. And I felt bad. I had to turn some of them away because they finished one thing and said, what can I do now? But there was a line waiting to paint. So who knew? But I thought this hopefully this will be an experience that some of these kids will remember forever. And whenever they see this mural, they'll say, oh, I painted this letter or that one. They'll remember. These were the two parish secretaries who were thrilled to come out, and they were sad. They told me when it was all finished because they won't be entertained anymore. The mother and daughter team. This woman rushed over from her yoga class, I remember, and this was one of the retired priests living there at the parish. I'd look at their school nurse or parish nurse. They don't have a school there, but she had broken her arm. But there she was. She said, even with a cast, she had to be part of this. And that's the pastor there. And so here's their finished product. And after I got home again, they sent me, here's some of the birds, feathers, worm, even a bird over the mailbox where they drop their in-house mail and notes. And a mother bird, a baby bird. And here's the finished product there. A little bit different coloration. We went with a lot more pinks and all that kind of changed. But they too have a clerestory window above, so it's tough to get a nice picture that's not bleached out by light. But here's they sent this to me when I got home again when they put the furniture back, and so that's my most recent mural project. And I'm going to close again. Pope Paul said this in that same passage at the end of Vatican II. It is beauty like truth, which brings joy to the heart. And Meister Eckhart, one of my favorite Dominican, way back in the Middle Ages, said he was a Dominican mystic, and he said the artist is not a special kind of person, but every person is a special kind of artist. And I think that's what this is about, what all my work hopefully is about, to show people that we're all walking around projecting and sharing and being the very image of Christ and beauty for our world. So that's it for me. Anybody have questions now? Is that how we work this?
Thanks so much, Mickey, for just a really beautiful presentation. I'm just delighted by all of your work. We'll now open the webinar to any questions and discussions. I would remind our listeners to use the question box for any questions that you might have. You can also use the raise hand feature if you wish to make a comment or a follow-up question. I want to start, Mickey, just by saying, you know, as an architect, we often struggle with code-related objects in our spaces, like three-headed emergency lights, and I've never quite figured out a wonderful way to deal with those, but your art has certainly shown us at St. Francis de Sales how those things can be incorporated in a way that's absolutely lovely and adds a bit to the artwork that's flowing around it.
It's fun to hear. I hadn't even thought of that. Yeah, but you as an architect would, of course, have to be conscious of that. It's fun.
So I'm wondering if you might say a little bit more.
And Paul, before you go, I just want to ask you to stop designing buildings that have clerestory windows. They're terrible for taking pictures.
I'll do what I can. So you talk a little bit about the experience of the temporary, and and in fact, some of your works, no doubt, have probably over time become maybe non-existent. And there was obviously that one that the prints were made to replace the original works. Can you say a little bit more about that and how the temporary? I mean, so much of what we do as consultants and artists and architects is about things that we see as permanent, but I think there is some gift in the temporary as well.
Yeah, I think the first thing that comes to mind to answer that is the Notre Dame Cathedral, and it's proof that everything is temporary, and that even the things that we revere as permanent, including us, you know, we're temporary. But I remember seeing it. I show pictures of that, and because I did drawings, I was so horrified watching that live from the news. And but the next day I saw a quote. A few weeks later, I saw pictures that an architect had submitted for the rebuilding of it, and the whole roof he had redesigned as glass, and with a glass floor, so that people, it was like a public park, and it has an orchard. He was suggesting that they put trees up there. It looked awesome in his designs, and use it to grow food for the poor of Paris, but also as a place for people to go up there and take a walk around and feel like they're in nature, even though we're in an enclosed space, and all the glass and sunlight made it solar heated. And I just thought it was a fabulous idea. But honoring the fact, the temporariness of it, I guess that gets it. You know. But of course, the government of France is who owns Notre Dame, not the church, and they say, oh, now we're going to rebuild exactly as it looked before. And I get that for tourist dollars, but what a missed opportunity to honor the fact that nothing's meant to stay the same. The Holy Spirit's always leading us forward in new directions, and we got to go with the new materials and new sensibilities about everything. Tough as that is to think about. So I guess that's where I come from with these things. And that Joseph's House mural that proved that things aren't permanent. You just let go. I felt I think the people at Joseph's House felt worse. They said they dreaded telling me that these things had to come down, and there I was very casual about it all, because the experience was so beautiful with the people who enjoyed it. Not I never set out to be the Sistine Chapel. It was the moment, the living in the present moment.
So I think that also relates to, obviously your art has a process to it that involves people and at some point moves beyond even the control of the artist. You mentioned that a couple times, and I'm wondering if you would say more about just how you incorporate process into your work.
Yeah, that's the tricky part that I'm still learning each time I do one of these. But it's because all of us artists, designers, architects, whatever we do, I know we love our quiet time. Even now in this crisis we're facing, and I have had to cancel so many jobs and retreats that I have coming up, and travel, and we're not supposed to go out and all that stuff. But in one sense, I love it because it's forcing me even to go down to the studio and just enjoy my process. So the trick with this whole mural thing that I've been doing is inviting others into it, because what I love about it is the solitary, the contemplative side of it and all that, and my inner Trappist monk comes out at those times. And but to share that is it's a little tough, but I like it. It has its own graces and benefits that when you're done in a few days and you can go back to your normal life. So it's just a matter of balancing, I think. I guess I don't know if that's answering your question, but
yeah,
that's what it feels like. It's like now it's time to move out of my cave and engage the world, and that's what Eucharist and churches are supposed to be about, right? No matter what denomination we are, it's communal, and so this is just making art communal, but then going back and doing my solitary thing too.
And then how has that whole process changed how you do art? Obviously the individual pieces are a little bit beyond your control. Has it changed how you do the art itself when starting from the point of designer?
That's a good question. I don't know that it has, except that it's gotten me more into not just this mural thing, but the last couple of years, I've always loved lettering and calligraphy, and and it just seems like that's the perfect place to go. So I think one big thing in which my process has changed is that so much of what I do, like what you're looking at right now, is digital. I do most of my work these days on my iPad. When I travel, I run trips and group, art and faith tours. I call them. I still do pen and ink and bring them home and paint with my liquid acrylics and all that, and I love that. But for this kind of thing, especially lettering, I find the iPad so conducive to that, because if you don't like the color, you hit a button and change the color or move things around. I can sit on a long plane trip and get a lot of work done, and I guess it's entertaining for the people sitting next to me sometimes. But in any event, so that this process has changed my whole thinking. And I find when I go back and do traditional paint on canvas or paper that I think it's better than it used to be because of this digital art thing. But it somehow feeds your initial question about the temporariness, because I don't know. I lost an iPad once. I left it, either left it in an airport or on a plane, and never retrieved it. And but I went out and got a new one the next day. But that was a big lesson for me about letting go. And I realized I had a lot of unsaved art on there. I don't even remember half of it to do it over again. And it doesn't matter. What I realized was I lost a lot of art, but I didn't lose my ability to make more of it. So, And I think that definitely has changed my whole experience of the temporary nature of all this and not being so possessive about it, you know.
So one of our members asked the question, how do you come to the quotes that you use? Do you talk to the client? Do they give you suggestions? Are there things that you're pulling from experience?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And no, I don't talk to the clients. I find it depends on the place. Like that one in New York City, I thought much better, you know. So I did a book on Dorothy Day years ago, and she was a great lover of beauty in any form. And I just felt I found the quote, and I don't think I even ran it by them ahead of time. I may have. And then for the Dorothy Day Center to use the same quote just made sense. So, but my quotes come from my loved, my reading, my spiritual Lectio Divina readings in the morning for the most part. That's where most of them come from.
And when we were doing the practice session for this webinar, you said something that I wrote down and it sticks in my mind, and I think it's observed in your art, both in the art itself and in the process. You said everything comes from the observed reality of life. And would you say more about that? Because I think, especially like the Camden project, you incorporated the people and the place and used, historic image to some extent, but made it personal to the place and time.
Yeah. Well, that's another excellent question, and that comes from my background as Salesian spirituality is the name of our spirituality, named for St. Francis de Sales, just like Franciscan or Dominican or Ignatian. We all have our different focuses, but one of the big focuses of Francis de Sales, who died in 1622, was about connecting to the present moment, living in the present moment, letting go of your fears of tomorrow and worries and the things that your mistakes of the past, or just let this living for today, basically. And that it made sense to me as an artist, because when I sketch, that's like when I'm on these trips, I take pictures, but I don't count on the pictures for anything. Sketching is what I enjoy more. So it's kind of trained me to be very quick, but sketching helps me connect to where I am right now. And that's what I think the healing beauty comes in for people. As I'm in high school, I don't care how old. It's like we all need quiet time. We're all on the run constantly, all texting and phones and emails. And I've learned that I prefer to not look at my emails until the afternoon. Morning is my time to create and welcome the new. There's nothing ever that urgent, but we have it in our heads that you can't leave home without your phone, or those things. And so that's what I think. There's nothing better than creativity, whether it be painting in art, in my case, or designing something new, or writing a poem. And no one ever, guess what? And this is what I tell group: no one ever has to see it. It's between you and God. It's prayer time. But I tell people, keep a journal where you doodle. It's just getting it out, and it's all beautiful. Don't judge yourself. That's another important thing. I can't do that. I hear that all the time. So I do a lot of mandala workshops and other drawing things, quilt patterns. I'll talk about the slave quilts and have people design a quilt pattern, but introduce it as a quiet, peaceful, and I love it in the work, which it almost always does.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. It's a wonderful place to stop. I'd like to thank you again, Mickey, for bringing this beauty to us and for your presentation.
Well, thank you for inviting me to do it. It's been a wonderful experience.
We're pleased to have you. And thank you again, Brother Mickey McGrath.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul.